Hey y'all, welcome to the Liberation Lit podcast where this power storytelling meets the force of social change. My name is Taylor, and in this podcast, we believe in the profound impact of stories. And I'm excited to be here today with children's book author, Amy Friedl. And we're going to talk about kids' books and nature and getting back and connected to nature. So I'm excited for this conversation. Hey, Amy, how are you doing
Good
today?
morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So, to kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself as a writer and why children's books?
Sure. So I proclaimed myself runaway teacher turned adventure girl. I like there are some women out there doing extreme sports and that is amazing. That is not me. I'm just been on a mission to figure out what I'm capable of in the outdoors in my almost 50 years. Just a few years ago took to being outside and found the power and the connection that I had out in nature. And so now I'm like, well, what else can I do out here? Um I tend to find a story or some lesson about life wherever I go, whether I'm like on the trail hiking and I notice a couple trees leaning together. I'm like, huh, there's like a metaphor there about how we're supposed to live and how women are supposed to encourage each other. There's something there. Or if it's out, I've taken to national parks recently, which is what my book series is set in, and finding some lesson about life. Like I wish there was some list of like every lesson, like the top 100 lessons every little girl should learn before she adults, but that doesn't exist. And honestly, it was probably written by a man. So I'd like to think I'm writing part of it anyway.
Yes. And as someone who I didn't grow up outside, I was very in the house, and it was like almost outside was unsafe for us
Mm,
because we
hmm.
had like I spent a lot of time at my grandma's house down in the country, and one of her next door neighbors had fighting dogs. So
Oh my
just like
gosh.
we were always like afraid that me or my sister or my cousins would be outside playing, and then one of them would get out. And so outside was associated with a lot of fear for us. And so now
Absolutely.
as an adult, I'm like trying to get back out there. I bought a hammock and I read outside. I go for walks. So I'm trying to heal that relationship with nature. And so I love the idea of your book series. And I wanted to ask, why do you believe in connecting children to nature, specifically for your books, but just people to nature?
Yeah, I love the fact that you are healing that, by the way, that like you're intentional, like, I'm gonna buy a hammock and I'm gonna spend time out here and choose to not be afraid. Like, I love that. I love that. I have a little bin in the back of my car. It's got two sides. One is like emergency stuff and water and jacks, and the other is hammock, chairs, hiking pole, pillow, blanket, because I don't know where, I'm gonna want to just pull over, take a roadside nap. So if I can back up a little bit, the reason I feel so strongly about connecting kids and people in general. And I think especially girls, honestly, like, I think a lot of that fear, right? Fear has been bred into us for how many generations and no, stay back, stay out of the limelight or out of the way. 2019 and 20, like pre COVID, was actually my lowest point mentally, my mental health journey. And it wasn't until like my oldest daughter at the time, she was shifting a college major, an intended major from musical theater to something outside. She hadn't quite figured out. And so she was actually really instrumental in literally dragging me out of bed. This was actually during COVID because my teaching career had shifted, obviously, and had a little bit more time to deal with the stuff that I was dealing with personally and not just my career wise. She was really good at literally dragging me out of bed. And I remember one day she said, "We need to let's go drive. Let's get to the Mississippi River." I'm like, I'm not driving, getting in a car for 3 hours. That's not it. I'm up in Wisconsin. So like we're surrounded by big, beautiful things. And she's like, okay, fine. Then we're going to Lake Michigan because I remember she said, you need to be by something bigger than you are. And I got out, we went there, and there was something clicked when we're on this bluff. It's now my favorite place in Wisconsin because it holds a piece of my heart and my brain. We're up on this bluff and overlooking Lake Michigan, which if you've not been to the Great Lakes, it feels like you're staring at the ocean because it is so huge. And we're up overlooking And there's just the awe and the massive and the beauty of it. And then we go down this trail, which I coined like a cedar rainforest, almost feels like. And you're going down these steps through the woods and then out into the beach, and you're at your feet in the water. There was just something when I was there that clicked, and I felt connected to something. I felt a part of something. I felt like I have purpose, I have importance, I have a value. I'm seen here where I may not be seen in my job. This has a connection. This makes me feel powerful and visible. And I want that for everybody. Fast forward a year or so, the same daughter went and did seasonal work around the country. And so she spent some time in the mountains, in the desert, and watching her grow strong and figure out who she was and grow more confident, and just empowered me as her mom. Like, I think most moms want, what we want for our kids, what we couldn't have for ourselves, right? And watching her have that and think, okay, but I can have that too, and kind of did a reversal. Like, yeah, she has this that I didn't have, but it doesn't mean I can't now. And um I remember I went to visit her when she was working in Glacier National Park, and sitting on a roadside wall overlooking the mountains and just the vastness of this beauty. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my eyeballs are so lucky to see this right now. I want every little girl to see this and to know that she can do this, and she can go do brave, intimidating things, and she can get out of her own way and go do this. And that's where Strong Girls Travel was born, was sitting on that roadside mountain. And so now Strong Girls Travel is all about empowering girls and girl families and young girls at heart to get out of their way and out of their heads and go define their adventure and figure out what it is. Chances are it's going to be outdoors, because I just feel like there's that connection there for growth and for change. And since then, I've named my Jeep Willow, because willow branches fall off and they just start growing wherever they land. They're like, oh, we're growing here now? Cool. Great. I can do this. And I've named my pop-up camper, which I was never a camper, and now I have a pop-up. I've named her Juniper, because junipers grow in unlikely places. Like, they thrive in the middle of a rock. And yeah.
I love how you said earlier, connecting nature, what you experience in nature, and even what your daughter said about just being a part of something bigger than you. I
Mm-hmm.
love kind of like the finding the message, because none of this is new. And like,
Right.
we can learn so much from just everything that grows organically. And I love that you created a series specifically for girls and girl families to kind of, like you said, have those 101 things that girls should know, but through the lens of nature. And
Yeah.
so, how do you believe stories and storytelling and nature connect to creating better communities?
I think nature is like the the great bonding medium that we have in our world. And I think we try, and women do this a lot, right? And yes, the series, I want to say this too, the series is Strong Girls Travel, but one of my closest friends, he has a son, and he is bent on getting every single book that I'm putting out. And he's like, I want my son to know girls are strong too. Like, and I'll run into a lot of people like, oh, I only have grandsons. I'm like, that's okay. They can still learn from the story, and there's not a little girl in the pictures, so like they can still relate. And I do think that nature is that great bonding medium, regardless of who we are, what we look like, where we came from. We are all looking for the same, maybe we're not looking for the same thing, but we find ourselves in the same place. I do remember I was hiking on my mission to learn something at every national park a little bit ago. I was at Isle Royal, which is a national park on an island in the middle of Lake Superior. Lake Superior is an inland sea, and so it is volatile. And it is this 49-mile long island that has a visitor center at one side, a ranger center at the other, and the rest is wilderness. And it's one of the only places around that wolves and moose exist. They coexist without the presence of bears around. And so they've got this entire symbiotic relationship going on. And years ago, they got rid of the wolves, or the wolves died off. I don't remember what it was, but the moose were there by themselves. They're like, great, they can finally have the place to themselves. And they started eating their own habitat away and overpopulating. And pretty soon the island was going to be gone if they didn't reintroduce moose and our wolves. And anyway, I have a point. So they brought the wolves back and reintroduced it, and now there is balance again. And I think that when people are in nature, we tend to find that balance. I'm on Isle Royal and I'm comparing the first night, I'm comparing my pace to someone else's pace. And it didn't take long and a couple of falls on wet rocks for me to remember, like, this is about me and my journey and my connection here. It's not about me comparing to that person and me worrying about how fast they're going or how long they're staying. And by the next morning, it clicked and you're out there and everybody is looking for the same thing. They're noticing weather patterns. They're noticing moose tracks. They're just saying, hi, how are you? And they're just connecting because nature just has that bonding. We take ourselves out of the story and just be there to see what we can learn. And I think that that has something to do for life too. And women, we tend to want to relate to each other all the time, right? And I hear your story and let me tell you how sometimes I think it's just an excuse to talk about ourselves. But if we stop and just listen, oh my gosh, the things that we can learn from each other if we take ourselves out of the story and out of the equation. And that's actually why my books don't have illustrations of little white girl running around in the wood, because I want anyone to be able to picture the park and see the park for who she is and what's out there, and imagine what their life could be like if they could actually be there and see it. And I don't know. I think we got enough. We don't have enough space in our brains to keep worrying about each other so much. And nature kind of removes that and just gives us the space to just focus on us and our journey and our growth.
I love that. And I've felt that on my walks. And so here in Colombia, I don't, I haven't, I know it's really bad. I'm born and raised in Colombia. I haven't actually been to Congaree yet, but I do walk along the river and the riverfront and working my way up to, I want to go hiking so bad, but again, that idea of girls in fear being
Yeah.
outside, I'm like, I don't want to hike by myself because I don't
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. I get it.
And
Yep.
so I'm trying to heal that work. And I love that you are found healing and grounding in nature. And what kind of motivates you to keep creating these stories for girls moving forward and inspiring them to be introduced to the national parks?
Um, well, part of it could just be a little self-competition of like, okay, well, I've only got 5 books down. I've got 58 to go. Part of it honestly could be that. But I heard a quote not too long ago, and I don't remember who said it, so I can't give credit, but it said, the only 2 people you really have to worry about impressing is your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old self. And that has stuck with me since I read it in August. And my 8-year-old self would be so freaking proud that I'm actually doing this, because if you ask my mom, what did Amy want to be when she was a little girl? It was always kids book author, children's book author, and illustrator. I am not the illustrator. I take 0 credit for that. That is all Drew's work. But I'm doing it. And I chose to leave teaching. It had become too toxic for me to stay in anymore. And I can't compete. As an English teacher, I couldn't compete with the test. But I'm doing it. And like my 8-year-old self would be really proud. And so for her, and for the 8-year-old girl who wasn't an adventure girl, didn't go camping, didn't do all these things outside, I want to prove to her that anything is possible and that you can rebrand even in your mid-40s.
And even the 8-year-olds who are 30 like me.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
do, if I can be so bold as to give you this little tip about Congaree, when you get up the nerve as part of your healing journey, when you go there, and you don't need your pass to get in, but when you go there, go to the visitor center, there's a boardwalk right off the back. It's super accessible. You're not going to be out in the woods. If you go to the visitor center and just do the boardwalk, it's a 3-mile boardwalk. You're on the boardwalk. You can't get lost. So,
Okay.
and it's just a loop. Yep. It's just a loop. And if it's flooded, because sometimes it does that because it's a floodplain. If the boardwalk is flooded, just turn around and take the boardwalk back. You cannot get lost.
Okay. Appreciate that, because I have been intimidated by the parks because I'm like, I don't have anywhere to go with, like, what
Understandable.
happened. So,
Yep.
okay, I'll do the
Yep.
boardwalk.
You can do the boardwalk.
So what are your next upcoming books in the series?
So just released the Great Smoky's book. So pretty excited about that. And that's getting pretty well received. Next up is, because I'm working on the east, I'm looking at a map over. I'm working on the east side of the country first. I know that when people think national parks, they think big ones. They think Utah, they think Glacier, they think Grand Canyon, and that's great. But the number one most visited park in the country, according to NPS's stats, is the Smoky Mountains. And it's number one by about 6 million people more than park number 2. And so that tells me the east side is just more accessible. You've got more families going to or going through. And so I really want to, and Congaree itself is number, I think, 51 out of 63, one of the least visited parks. So if I can get people out there like on their way to the Smokies, you're only this far from Mammoth Cave, go here. You're only this far from Congaree, go visit this place too. And so anyway, in my journey to do all the East Side parks first, Cuyahoga Valley National Park in Ohio is coming up next. And then probably Shenandoah in Virginia. And that will cover the bulk of the parks in that eastern part, except for Florida and Maine. Those are pretty obscure. I have to fly to get there kinds of parks so far. But what I'm really, really excited about is I'm working with a business coach. Actually, tomorrow is my next call with her. And we are taking Strong Girls Travel into real life. And I'm going to extend the Strong Girls Travel brand as a solo travel itinerary coach, and just working with women to, like, you've said you want to do this your whole life. Let me walk you through it. Let me help. Let me hold your hand. You can do this, and watch you meet your goals. I'm also going to be starting to do some group travel for solo travelers in the state of Wisconsin. Like, women are like, yeah, I wanted to try car camping, or I want to camp by myself. And so, okay, let's do this together. Let me help you, and I'll look at a group site, and it will get you, you can go do this. And you're on your own, but in a group. So you've got people there. If you're not really sure how to back up your rig, we've got enough women there to help you figure it out, and let's learn from each other. And I'm super excited to see Strong Girls Travel IRL, I guess.
I love that because I've done the whole solo travel, but meet up with a group. And I feel like that is like so accessible for people looking to do solo travel, especially like I think of people like to my aunt and my uncle, they bought an RV a couple of years ago. They were like, we don't have any idea what to do about anything. This is great. We're retired and we're
Gonna
going to
figure
go
it
out.
out.
Yes. And I love the idea of bringing together people in a group, because a lot of people like me, I can't find people who want to hike with me regularly.
Sure.
So getting that experience where it's less intimidating to learn how to do it on your own, I think that is amazing.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
And yes. And my last question for you is, what advice would you offer listeners who want to make a positive impact in their communities?
I would say pay attention, and maybe don't feel like you have to relate all the time. Just listen. Just listening to someone's story, what can you learn from them, and appreciate the journey that they're on. It doesn't always have to be about us relating to each other. We can just stop and listen.
I love that. And I think that's why I started Liberation is Lit, because I was reflecting about a year ago that reading is great for strengthening the listening muscle, because you can't respond unless you can talk to a book. Like you're just listening, you're not listening to respond. So I love that piece of advice.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Amy, for being on the podcast. Where can people find you and keep up with all of the series that's coming out and the IRL stuff?
Thank you for having me. This has been so much fun. So Strong Girls Travel that's our handle on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I joke that I'm too old for TikTok, but too young for Life Alert, but I'm figuring it out. And so those three, yes, you can get the books on big box stores, but I know you have Congaree. Liberation is Lit has Congaree's bookstore or book in stock. I work really hard to call local bookstores to the parks and try and get in there. And so if anybody is near a national park, and I can't get into the visitor center yet, they are corporate run, and I've been trying for a year, and I won't quit trying. But if you're near if you're at a bookstore near a national park, ask them if they have it. If they're connected with Bookshop, they can typically get it for you. So
yes. And I will link the bookshop links to the other books.
thanks.
So thank you again, Amy, for being on the podcast. This was a great conversation, and just helped me personally too, thinking about how I can be more intentional about being outside. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you have stories that you want to share, want to suggest any topics, or just want to connect, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Liberation is Lit, or you can visit our website, liberationislit.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please consider leaving a review. And remember, your voice matters. And together, through the lens of stories, we're going to make a difference in the world. Until next time.